All right, so we're going to pick it up on page 100. This is Miigwans Coming To Story. So as a reminder, he is the leader of their group. We just learned last chapter about his husband that was taken from him and presumably taken to the schools, but we don't know what's happened yet. So this is his Coming To story, and this is on page 100. Isaac was a kind man. Too kind, really, for his own good. We'd made it out to our cottage. It was far enough in the bush that we knew they could manage there for at least a season or two before anyone thought to come this way. It was a deep winter when we arrived. We drove our jeep to the main road and then parked it a few meters in. Then we unhitched quads from the pole and made our way to the cabin. It was still early days, all rumors and speculation, so we probably weren't as careful as we should have been. Still, we felt safe out there. It used to be Isaac's grandfather's hunting camp. Over the years since the wedding, we'd fixed it up and put on an addition, taking down the smoker and installing a greenhouse. We were completely off the grid, which worked out perfectly, since the power to remote areas had been cut long ago. We had an uneventful 3 months, cut off but still together. Isaac was a poet, you see, and in the adversity, the worlds kept coming. In some ways, we were still happy. Isaac had his words, both English and Cree, and I had my Isaac. Then one night, we heard a commotion in the bush. Mimi, we should go check. Could be game. Isaac was cautiously hopeful. It was infectious. So far we'd managed to grab less than a dozen rabbits and only a skinny deer. What a day that was. We resurrected an old ceremony for that deer. The smaller rewilded breeds that people were thriving on or living on, hamsters and cats, hadn't herded this far into the bush yet. We took the rifle and we went out to check. Snowshoes on the deep snow, soft shuffle, and silence. It was so quiet out here, any noise carried. We walked across the expanse of what we considered our yard, then through a thin collection of birch to the tool shed. In a clearing, 200 feet from the shed, were 3 people, a man, a woman, and another younger woman. We watched from the trees for a bit. Only the younger one had a look I recognized. She was obviously Cree, but looked more plains than northern, so she was far from home. The others I wasn't sure. They were dark, but they were speaking too low and in English, so I couldn't grab an accent or slang to place them. Isaac looked at me, eyebrows arched. I knew what he was thinking. He had a soft spot for strays. I think that's why he took a chance on me to begin with. A long-haired hunter who'd wandered into Northtown at the same time he was breezing through, reading from his latest book at a number of libraries and the few bookstores still scattered about. It was about the time literature was going through a bit of a renaissance. People clinging to that old adage about bedtime stories and the dreams they might bring. Isaac was unafraid of rumors being thrown out about new factories where experiments were held and the danger that was coming. It was more because he felt he had value as a poet than the fact that he was a pale, green-eyed half-breed. And he did. But he overestimated how long that would last, and how quickly people would forget the art in the Indian and instead see only the commodity. We should stay alone. It was barely a whisper. They'll stumble on the cottage anyway. They're too close now. I rolled my eyes. There was no use trying to talk him out of anything once he'd made up his mind. When we came into the clearing, gun raised, they jumped and hastily greeted us in stumbling Anishinaabe, all except the second female, who must have been in her early 20s. She lifted her hood to cover her head and throw her face in the shadows. The older woman yanked it back down and pulled her to her feet, apologizing for her rudeness. Right away they smelled that Isaac was the kinder one, and directed all their chatter to him. "Oh, brother, I tripped on a log back that way. Really messed up my ankle." He bent down to rub at it, wincing as he did. I was like, "Miigwetch, thanks a lot for that, geez." The man limped about to gather the few items he started to unpack, already guessing Isaac would extend the inevitable invitation. "Yes, holy, I'm just exhausted. My binjooning won't let up and give me the rest, and I feel crampy." The older woman arched her back and rubbed her round belly. I thought she just looked chubby. She was too soft and even all around. "My husband is a healer. He can have a look at you," Isaac said proudly, placing a hand on my shoulder. I sighed. "No, no," the man was loud. "I'll be okay. Just a bit of a twist. And my wife, well, she's just a complainer. First baby and all." The girl stayed quiet, lips tight, eyes to the ground. We carried the man's packs, and he hopped along with an arm thrown over his wife's shoulders. I should have guessed then from the softness of the canvas on the backpack, like it was brand new from the store. The way it was only one layer kind of wet, and not soaked through and frozen stiff in the snow. I should have guessed from the way he wasn't meticulous about packing up, and almost left behind a precious tin of canned meat, like it was nothing, like he could grab more at any time. The girl dragged along behind. "You can stay until your ankle gets better," Isaac offered. "Shouldn't take longer than a day," I remarked, throwing the 2 light backpacks on the floor of the front hall. Isaac squeezed the back of my elbow in the dark. "A day or 2, I amended, not only because I loved my husband. "We appreciate it," the woman said. "But with me being in this condition and all, any time inside helps." They slept in our spare room, all 3 of them, even though we offered the youngest the pull-out couch from the front room. In fact, she was never left alone, the older woman even milling about in the hallway outside the bathroom when she went in. And I couldn't get a straight answer on how she knew them. Over soup that afternoon she said they were her cousins. But in the evening, in front of the fire, while he nursed a glass of our rare whiskey — he asked for a second glass even, how rude — the man told Isaac she was his wife's sister, and she always seemed skittish. Scared, maybe. "Oh, Mimi, you're so suspicious," Isaac told me that night under our duvet, the weight of his calf over my ankle. "You'd be skittish too if we were on the run in the woods." I knew he was right. I tried to be more hospitable, but still. Something kept me alert to discomfort. I was up and in the kitchen long before anyone else stirred, watching the snow fall and slow motion flakes in the yard. The second day passed without remark. The trio slept late, wolfed down more of our lunch offering than was polite, and then retreated for an afternoon nap. Dinner found Isaac straining to make conversation over spaghetti and bannock, while our guests glared at each other and watched the windows. Something woke me up in the middle of the night. I lay in bed for a while listening to Isaac breathe and the wind nod around the bare branches outside. I walked out into the hallway, half lit by the moonlight, falling in through the small curtainless window at the end, and banged straight into the girl. She'd been standing in the shadows by our door. "Oh, I'm sorry, didn't see you there." I apologized, but then grew angry. What in the hell was she doing by our door in the middle of the night? "How long—" She pushed a callous finger along my lips, and I shut up. "I can't do this no more. You and your man gotta run." I pushed her hand away from my face, noticing the way it shook. "What do you mean we gotta run? This is our home. We don't have to do anything." That's when she pulled up her pant leg, and I saw the black ankle monitor, blinking red in the dark like a boy. That's also when the man came out into the hallway and saw us. Then the blinking light laid bare and in plain sight. He yelled in a language I later found out was Tagalog, and the other woman rushed into the hallway. She grabbed at the younger woman by her braid, cursing in her language and dragging her back into the room. "She's crazy. She doesn't know what she's talking about." The man laughed nervously. He shrugged his shoulders and took a few steps towards me, steps that were unencumbered by the limp that had made him a useless guest who couldn't help gather wood or leave with his odd family in tow. Isaac was behind me now. The struggling woman yelled from the room now. "Run! You have to run now. They're already on the way." There came the sound of a struggle and a crash. The man backed down the hallway in a hurry and ducked into the open door before slamming it shut. I could hear the bolt being slid into place, and then a racket of furniture banging and panicking dialogue. I wanted to kick down the door, ask 1,000 questions, make them pay for bringing all this into our beautiful home, with our books and the fireplace we'd built out of dry river rocks. But I knew we didn't have time. I knew then the rumors were true, and we had precious little time to get our indigenous asses out of the house and into the shadows. I grabbed Isaac by the hand and brought him to our room. I pushed a chair against the doorknob in case those maniacs came for themselves, and I pulled the bags out of the walk-in. "We'll take all the ammunition we can find. We can take the quads. They're loud, but we can get further into the bush with them. I'll grab the camping gear from under the stairs. Might be roughing it for a few weeks before we can find another livable spot. Maybe we can even circle back in a bit." Isaac snapped out of his tired shock and began stuffing some precious books and the more beautiful of his sweaters into a duffel bag. But it was too late. The vans pulled up outside, and our guests hollered at them from their bedroom window. "Upstairs, 2 males, second door to the right." Isaac was at the window before me and covered his open mouth with a hand. Holy shit. I squeezed in beside him. Outside the sky was full of lights, blue and red reflecting off the clouds and the trees and the sides of our cottage. 5 Arctic Cat quads were parked lengthwise and haphazard out front, and men, all wearing identical white parkas with round red logos, were scattering about the yard. "Isaac, just leave the bags. Get your shoes on now. Layer up as much as you can. Hurry." I pushed him away from the window. "Me, it's too late. If I can just talk to them, I'm sure." "They won't listen. You need to get ready to leave right this minute." I watched half the men circle to the back. We'd have a shot if we got to the cellar and came up into the yard. It wasn't a guarantee with all these men, but it was the best chance we had. Isaac slid a hand across my shoulders, and I turned away from the window. He had that look of calm resolve on his face. The look he'd gotten when the dog had to be put down, and when the fire took our apartment in Northtown. "I really need you to trust me on this. This is our home. They can't just come in here and do what they like. Now, I'm not sure what all of this is about, but that stuff we've heard, Miigwans, that's just too ridiculous to be true." I heard a sharp rap on the front door, and my heart jumped into my throat. Isaac didn't have memories in his family of the original schools, the ones that pulled themselves up like wooden monsters coming to attention across the land back in the 1800s. Monsters who stayed there, ingesting our children like sweet berries, one after the other, for over 100 years. Isaac didn't have grandparents who told residential school stories like campfire tales to scare you into acting right. Stories about men and women who promised themselves to God, only then took whatever they wanted from the children, especially at night. Stories about a book that was like a vacuum, used to suck the language right out of your lungs. And if I didn't have time to share them, not now. "Isaac, I need you to run, right now. We need to get the hell out of here, because those men down there," I pointed behind me out the window, "they sent strangers into the woods to find us. Now they're surrounding our home in the middle of the night. Does that sound like they might be reasonable to you?" We didn't have time to come to an agreement. The front door banged open, and heavy footsteps were on our wooden stairs. I pushed Isaac behind me, and I squared my shoulders, wishing we'd started sleeping with the shotgun like we talked about. If I had honestly known what was in store for us, I would have used it to finish us both, right there and then.